In this presentation, we will be looking at a major turning point in history. Though we might hear the term Industrial Revolution and think it only had to do with industry or business, we would be wrong. The Industrial Revolution is a catalyst for sweeping changes in everything from where we live, how we work, when and how our children go to school, our public health and hospitals, our economic systems, and so much more. In fact, the Industrial Revolution will impact every aspect of our modern lives. If you remember way back at the beginning of this course, we learned that changes in ancient agricultural practices would allow people to stay in one place and build towns and eventually cities. Once again, massive changes in agriculture during or beginning around the 1600s will lead to another industrial revolution, or lead to the Industrial Revolution. Before the 1600s, lands in Great Britain, common land, was used for grazing animals, while small plots of land were used to grow food for local families. The enclosure movement is a time when this changes because all of the public lands would begin to be fenced off or enclosed. On top of this, smaller land holdings were combined to become larger, more efficient holdings. As smaller farms were incorporated into bigger farms, the people who farmed the land were forced to become tenant farmers or move to the city. Besides the enclosure movement, advancements in farming technology like crop rotation and new equipment helped farms produce more products, which in turn helped feed an ever-growing population. With the use of iron plows and better production, farm work would become easier and require less people. This would mean that people were out of work and looking for new jobs. These people looking for new jobs created a mobile labor force that would move into the cities and become the workforce for factories. So, what exactly is the Industrial Revolution? If we look at the word industrial, its root word is industry, which means the production of goods and services. A revolution is a push for change. That means that the Industrial Revolution is a time period where new practices of labor and inventions resulted in large productions of products, changing the way humans lived. Many people will claim that this is the most important revolution outside the agricultural revolution in ancient times. To really break it down, because we had a large population looking for new kinds of work, and because of new inventions that we're going to look at in a few slides that would make work easier and less skill-based, and these inventions include machinery and the buildings and use of factories, we're able to have this huge shift in the way humans work. And it would all begin in Great Britain. Great Britain would be a hotbed for these changes because it already had the essential items in place for this type of change. It had a fast-growing population that was looking for work due to those improvements in farming discussed on the last slide and the enclosure movement. It also had lands and waterways that were essential to building and operating the new factories. And it had a business model with a middle class that was willing to invest in new machine-driven factories. So how do we put this together with the Agricultural Revolution and the Industrial Revolution? Remember that concept of cause and effect. Certain things have to be put in place which are the cause, to lead to an effect. So how does the agricultural revolution prepare Britain for the Industrial Revolution? Great Britain's agricultural revolution led to their success during the Industrial Revolution because of some key factors. The agricultural revolution created a wealth for bigger landowners, which would give them capital or money to invest in inventions and new businesses. The agricultural revolution would result in people moving to cities in search of work. So Britain would have a large labor force that was willing to move or migrate. Plus, Britain had the resources. As you're going to see, some of the new elements of industry like machines and these steam engines need raw materials. And Great Britain has things like coal and iron to build and run new factories, while water power and inland shipping would help move products from factories to market. So Britain was situated perfectly in order to take advantage of these new inventions and really push a new form of industry. One of the most important things when looking at the big picture of the Industrial Revolution is to realize that it's all interconnected. What that means is that changes in certain industries are going to encourage, influence, or demand changes elsewhere. Industry needs for more efficient power to run looms will force or encourage improvements and inventions in the areas of the steam engine. The invention and use of the steam engine will drive the mining industry. The mining industry will help Britain become a major economic player since it had so much coal close to the surface, making it easier to mine. The next 3 slides, including this one, will look at specific industries, but it is really important that you pay attention to where these industries impact and help to develop other industries. So one of the primary industries that is going to be one of the initial or the early players in the Industrial Revolution is the textile industry. And textile is the making of cloth. And prior to this to the Industrial Revolution, humans would create cloth by hand using a human-driven loom. So they would just throw threads or run shuttles through a loom that was all managed through human power. But new inventions, and primarily a mechanized loom, which was an instrument or a machine for weaving cloth, could make cloth quickly and more efficiently. Specifically, the spinning jenny would make thread 8 times faster than by the traditional spinning wheel. This means that mechanized loom needed thread to be created faster, so the spinning jenny is created or invented in order to create that thread. Once you have this mechanized loom and the spinning jenny working together, you really needed to have, industry really needed a different power source in order to speed up the process. So the water-powered loom would allow one person to make the same amount of cloth as 200 hand loom operators. So what that should tell you is, at this point, the faster they could make machines work, the more product was being created. Now, water-powered looms were not necessarily the fastest looms. And so to keep up with the abilities of the new machinery, a new source of power would need to be implemented or invented. And that is going to happen in the steam engines, and which will greatly impact the industries of iron and steel. Early factories and machines were powered by water, which meant a factory must be near a stream or river. Eventually, steam was used in 1712 to power engines, and this would quickly become the primary source of power. Now, to create steam, you needed heat. So coal and the mining of coal would be a huge, booming industry in Great Britain. On top of that, a new way of creating stronger steel was going to be created. So though iron had been used in the past, it regularly blew up because it was not strong enough to contain the pressure in steam engines. In the 1850s, a new way to produce steel was created that made it even stronger. The production of steel required two things: iron and coal. And the coal was used to produce heat. So the mining of these items would create work for many, many people, including small children, which we'll learn about in a couple different lessons. Now, the industry of transportation is going to need to be changed because we have all of these industries in these towns that are growing rapidly and becoming major urban areas where the textiles are being made that and other products that factories start to produce. But there needs to be a way to get all of these new products that are being rapidly made to the markets in much larger cities. So up till this point, really there had been very little changes in the way we transported goods. We used horses and wagons. There were coaches, which is just larger wagons that would transport product. But that was when product was being made by hand, which meant there was less product at a time to transport. As production increased, supplies needed to be moved more quickly. Waterways and steam engines would help make this happen. Robert Fulton created the first profitable steamboat in 1808, and it could quickly move the products from the factories to the markets. In fact, steam engines would be placed on ships that could move products across the Atlantic in half the time, meaning 17 days. This meant the products were now more accessible, which meant the factories needed to create products even faster. And so all of these different industries between transportation, the coal and iron industries, and textile all kind of churned together and pushed each other to create increase production and make it more efficient. Make sure to go back and make a note of the sequence of inventions and improvements. Think about why one invention would lead into another and how the new ways of doing things helped push other areas of industry. I highly recommend, while watching the videos and reading the sources for the rest of this lesson, that you add to these notes.